Jon Jones's legacy will take a hit if he loses to Stipe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it'll. Any loss always affects a fighter's legacy, the way he or she is perceived among the public. But I think the label of still the greatest fighter of all time, he probably still keeps that. Maybe if he loses the George St. Pierre conversation, maybe bumping up to number one gets a little bit closer, and I think maybe
Sure.
you can do that. But still, I mean, if you're the greatest or the second greatest of all time, it's still pretty damn good. So yeah, it definitely takes a hit. But no matter what happens on Saturday, Jon Jones is a future UFC Hall of Famer. Jon Jones is one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, the greatest light heavyweight of all time. I mean, Jon Jones' legacy at this point is pretty much set, unless he goes on like a BJ Penn run, God forbid. Um, More or less, people will see him with the same eyes, I think.
I mean, I said last week that Stipe has no chance. I just told you that there's no doubt that he's going to get a finish. So to me, there's no doubt that if he loses this fight, his legacy is going to take a hit. I mean, I've warned against this fight. And here's the thing. I understand that in Jon's, the reason why we're not getting Tom Aspinall against Jon Jones on Saturday night is because Jon thinks this is a legacy fight. This is a fight for his legacy. All right. But here's the thing. My counter to that, there's no upside to beating Stipe on Saturday. Do you think there's any upside to beating Stipe? Is there any upside to beating a slower, older 42-year-old? Sure, granted, he's considered the greatest heavyweight of all time, but what's it matter if you're beating him,
That's an
this late in
overreaction.
his career? I mean, is there any upside? I think there's only downside in this fight for Jon Jones.
I think right now it may look that way because we're in a very cloudy spot right now in the UFC heavyweight division. And obviously, Tom Aspinall's rise is definitely rubbing a lot of people the wrong way in the sense that Jon Jones is not fighting him, and instead he's fighting a 42-year-old that hasn't fought in 3 years. But I think just having him on his record looks nice. Having that Stipe
Not this
Miocic
late.
next to it on Wikipedia green looks nice. I think right now it might seem like a suspect fight. I agree. He should be fighting Tom Aspinall, but in a year or two, once we look back on his career, it's still Stipe Miocic, and it's gonna look good. I mean, you see it all the time. Like all these fighters develop records, and they beat this and so and so and so and so, and it looks good, right? Like one maybe at the moment it doesn't, but having the name always on your resume of Stipe Miocic has to help. So I do think it improves his legacy a little bit more. Not a ton, but I think
Does
it
nothing.
it, it
It
weighs
does
something.
nothing. It does nothing. It's there's so much.
Especially Stipe is able to like create some magic and kind of look decent, and look like close to a prime version of himself, which it's not impossible, but
You think if we
um,
got a 5-round war, you think a 5-round war is going to help
and
Jon
Stipe
Jones'
looks
legacy?
good, and Jon Jones wins it, like gets like a late finish, but Stipe manages to like not embarrassing himself. I think we're going to be talking about how great Jon Jones is. Yeah.
If this fight goes 5 rounds, it's going to be a boring 5 rounds. Let me just tell you that much right now. I don't
Most
see a
likely.
5-round war happening. If this goes 5 rounds, it's just a methodical sort of tactical. Jones doesn't want to get too close, doesn't want to get caught, but he's punching from the outside and scoring left and right on Stipe. That's what it's gonna be.
Also, I think we're two in the bubble, and not to take a hit our audience as well, but I think they're in the two in the bubble as well. I'll give you an example. Just a few days ago, my brother, who is a former MMA fan, he used to be a
Smart
huge
guy.
hardcore, no longer, but he'll tune in every now and then to like Pereira and some of the bigger names and whatnot. He goes, "Oh, Jon Jones is going to be fighting this weekend against Stipe Miocic. That's such a great fight." And I'm like, he's 42 and he hasn't fought in like 3 years. And he's like, "Oh, really?" I think there's a lot of people that still see Stipe Miocic in high regard. And I still think once you roll out the accolades, and there's a reason why they're on that poster, and I'm sure the broadcast is going to do a great job at reminding you of that.
Sure.
I think in a
I'm
lot of
sure they
people's
are.
mind, this is going to be, oh my God, Jon Jones is the best of all time. Huge win. What he's doing is just unfathomable. It's just unreal. I think to you and me and the people watching this show, we're going to be like, yeah, but
Yeah, well, you forget DC's on the call for this fight, so it may not be complete Jon Jones glazing on the broadcast with DC on the call.
that's going to be an interesting storyline as well. I'm sure he's going to be under the microscope for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'll just say this one last my final thought here is, again, I understand why Jon Jones wants this fight over Tom Aspinall. I understand the cosmetics and the optics of it. He's the greatest heavyweight of all time against the guy that people widely consider, not me, but widely considered to be the greatest fighter of all time. But this is like Mayweather and Pacquiao happening 5 years past their primes. Like that fight still happened, and yeah, it was cool, I guess, but that fight lost a lot of its luster. This fight just doesn't have a lot going for it. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I would say it's even worse than the Pacquiao and
See?
Mayweather, because at least they were superstars in their own right at that time, and they were still world champions. Probably, maybe not Pacquiao. I think Pacquiao had taken that knockout loss to blanking on who right now. But anyways, they were fighting. They were active. These guys are not that very active, and not only that, but like you got Aspinall on the wings. You got Ngannou as well, killing it with his PFL debut. There's a lot of other people that we can point to and say they're the baddest man on the planet rather than these two fighting on the weekend.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we still agree to disagree here, or you do think he's going to take a hit? Legacy takes a hit if he loses? Yeah. Legacy takes a hit.
Yeah,
we know it does.
MMA Junkie AI.